Hello, welcome to our series on the Gospel of John. We're inviting you to investigate the Gospel to see is Jesus really who he said he was. I'm with Mike Ritter today. He's a partner at Live Wellness Center Counseling Agency. Glad to have you with us, Mike.
Thanks for having me here. It's a privilege.
It is a privilege to work with you here at Live Wellness and help people, and we integrate our faith into our counseling practice, and that's a lot of fun. And today we're investigating the Gospel of John. We're going to start with John chapter 1. We're going to take each chapter and make a video on it and just hit a highlight. So we invite you to just read along chapter 1 of Gospel of John before you watch the video, and then you'll know what we're talking about a little bit more. I just want to say that I love you and I care about you, and that's why we're doing this. Chapter 1, it starts in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. So we're seeing in the beginning, which is the same way the Old Testament began, with those words, in the beginning. John's referencing this. This gospel is a little bit different than Matthew, Mark, and Luke in this prologue, but he calls Jesus the Word. Back then, there was a Greek idea that the word was like the rationale, like what was the reason? What's our reason for existing? And they would use that word logos to talk about this rationale. And John was saying, well, the idea, the rationale, the word, the message is Jesus. And it's a play on the culture, but it's also a play on the Old Testament, how the Bible began. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless, empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. Well, you're going to see that same theme in the Gospel of John in his prologue, where he talks about in him was life, and that light was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and darkness has not overcome it. That's another theme, is the light shining in the world. You're going to see Jesus is going to face resistance. People are not going to agree with what he says and the things that he claims about himself, and he claims that the Father has told him to say to the people. So you're going to see these themes in this very exciting book. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He's called the light. John chapter 8, we're going to see Jesus calling himself the light of the world. He was in the world, and through him the world was made. The world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. And this is the exciting part. This is where you come in. You're part of this story. You are part of the gospel story, because it says, yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name. Another theme in the Gospel of John, belief. Those who believed in him, those that put their trust in him, those that took him at his word, he gave the right to become children of God. This is a very inclusive gospel, because it's saying all. It doesn't matter what your financial background is. It doesn't matter what sin you have committed. It doesn't matter who you are, how smart you are, what you look like, what the color of your skin is, what people group you're with, who you identify with, however you identify. All who did receive him, to those that believed in his name, he gave right to become children of God. So you get to be part of this story. You get to investigate if Jesus is real, and if you want to believe in him, put your trust in him, he will give you the right to become children of God.
I like this this picture of him being light as well, because one of the things that light does is it illuminates everything around us. When I was younger, I used to hear people asking, like, what is the meaning of life and things like that. For some reason, I don't hear that very much anymore.
Yeah.
Although I think that question is tugging at everybody in one way or another. But if you are asking those deeper questions, what's the meaning of life? Why do I feel pain? Why do other people hurt me? All the deep questions that come up in the course of our life. You think of it kind of like somebody is in a dark room and they're stumbling around trying to find their way. There might be a chair in front of them that they can't see. They might be able to feel things in the room, like a picture frame on the wall, but they don't know why it's there, and they certainly can't see the beauty of the picture itself.
Right.
They might even run into other people and hurt other people or be hurt by other people and not be able to see what's happening.
Yeah.
But if you just reach up and pull the cord and turn the light on, you can see everything. You know that person's there because you can see them. You know the stool's in front of you because you can see it. You know what the painting looks like, and you can appreciate it for what it is because you can see it on the wall, and it adds an entirely new depth to your experience in that room. And so when he's talking about being the light of the world, that's illuminating everything around us. So we can start to understand God's perspective on who we are and how he made us and who other people are, why there's difficulty in the world, why we do things that hurt other people, why other people do things that hurt us. And we can start to make more sense of what's going on in the world when that light is illuminating everything around us.
And Jesus shines light on problems that people are going through in the year we're making this video, 2023. It's relevant.
Yeah.
The light lights up every area of our life. Anything that you want to know about, the light is shining in the darkness.
And you mentioned John 8:12, and this is the ESV version. He says, it says, "Again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." That's kind of like that analogy I just gave of the person walking in a dark room, stumbling over things. When you turn the light on, you can see everything. You know where it is, and you know how to navigate it, and you can see it for what it is.
Yeah, he's the light of the world. And you get to be in the story. Well, Philip had found Nathanael, told Nathanael, "We found the one that Moses wrote about in the law, and about the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nazareth? Can anything good come out of there? Nathanael said. "Come and see," said Philip. So it's natural for you to, maybe you're watching this video and you're like, I don't know if Jesus is real or not. We're just inviting you to investigate. Come and see the one that Moses wrote about. Moses wrote about, starting in Genesis 3, there was a prophecy about Jesus. And you can look that up. Micah is another prophet in the Old Testament. In chapter 5, verse 2 of Micah's prophecy, he said that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. Messiah would come from the tribe of Judah, it says in Genesis 49. This is what Moses wrote about. Isaiah said he would be born of a virgin. So if you weren't born of a virgin, you can't be the Messiah. Rejected by his own people, which happened. And Psalms wrote about that, and Isaiah 53 wrote about that. He would be called King and Son of God. If you read Psalm 2, you'll see that. Betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. That's pretty specific prophecy by Zechariah, that the Messiah would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver, and it happened exactly like he chose. And what would you say about somebody that said, well, Jesus knew these prophecies were real, but he decided he would just try to fulfill them all, and that's all he did?
Well, some of the prophecies were about when he was young, and you can't control where you're born. You can't control.
He couldn't control. He was born of a virgin.
Where your parents take you when you're young,
and they took him to Egypt when he was young. There's no way he could have planned that out.
Yeah.
Some other ones are that his hands and feet would be pierced. Psalm 22. That's what happened. His hands and his feet would be pierced. They would look upon the one that they pierced, the Bible says. The Bible also predicts in Psalm 22 that they would gamble over Jesus' clothes. The Passover lamb's bones would not be broken. In the Old Testament, the Passover lamb was not to have a broken bone. And when they went and crucified Jesus and the two men that were next to him being crucified, they broke the other two's legs, but Jesus had already died, so they didn't break any of his bones. That was prophesied. The Messiah would return from the dead, and he would be the sacrifice for our sin, the silent lamb, the slaughter, buried with the rich, suffering, righteous servant. And he's coming back again in Daniel 7. So there's some prophecies that you can start investigating, and then you can start putting together, like if all these witnesses said these things about the Messiah, and then you start reading about the Gospel of John and how Jesus healed people and how he raised Lazarus from the dead. He said, Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus came alive from the dead, and he was walking on water. You read all these stories about Jesus from eyewitnesses. This book of John is from an eyewitness, John, who saw it himself. We're asking you to Look at the evidence from the eyewitness John and the 500 people who saw Jesus resurrected, and Paul and all the Old Testament prophets that predicted about Jesus. Look at all this evidence and compile it up and decide, is this reliable? And I think you'll come to the conclusion, it's so reliable. And so in Gospel of John, it starts out with God coming into the world, getting involved with the world, and it just makes you wonder, like, how can a holy God that is infinitely holy interact and become involved with a fallen, broken world? And John answers that and says, flesh came down and dwelt among us, that Jesus tabernacled among us, set up his tent with us. And that was one of the explanations in the Old Testament was, yeah, God is holy, and he does interact with his creation. And that was the tabernacle. God would come and visit in a powerful way. The ministers couldn't even stand during the church service back then because the power of God was so strong. And the Bible says that Jesus came and dwelt among us. It's a great mystery. It's a great, exciting story. And Philip had told Nathanael, come and found the one that Moses and the prophets wrote about. He encouraged him to come and see. Another prophecy that the prophets had written about is Isaiah 53, which says, who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Talking about the Messiah. He grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him. Nothing in his appearance was that we should desire him. He was despised, rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain, like one from whom people hide their faces. He was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us have turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. This is how Jesus was when he was being crucified. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter. And as a sheep before its shearers is silent, he did not open his mouth. So this prophecy about the Messiah goes on. You can read the rest of Isaiah 53 for yourself. And you'll see in these other prophecies that we talked about today, and plenty of other prophecies that we didn't mention because of time, that Jesus was very precisely predicted by a group of people that wrote different books in the Bible that were alive in different periods of time, that lived in different areas of the world, and they all come together, and we figured out they're saying the same thing about the Messiah, that Jesus was in the beginning with God. He's the light of the world. He's shining in the darkness, and he's there for you. You can be included in this story. Come and see. For all that believed, he gave the privilege to become the sons of God. So John gives us the purpose of writing the gospel toward the end of the gospel. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, so at the end, chapter 20, verse 30 and 31, it says, now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name.
Belief is a big theme in John. We hope you keep investigating this wonderful book with us.